This morning we're having a bit of a conversation for a few minutes, and let me introduce you to a few people. Firstly, let me introduce you to Mark. This is Mark Michael, and his wife Andrea has gone out with little Ellie into the creche, who we will introduce you guys just in a moment. Mark, welcome. It's really good to have you here, and you're the people director. Is that the right word? Or yeah,
I don't like saying it because I always have to explain it. I'm the Chief People Officer.
Chief People Officer. That sounds so much better than human resources. I do have to say, people is brilliant. So, Mark, it's really great to have you here. Just tell us a little bit about who yourself, and then we'll come on to New International in a moment. But just tell us a bit, because obviously you're not born here. So, where are you from, and how did you end up in Scotland?
What gave that away?
Oh, I don't know.
It's like the Ted Lasso line. Oh, that's right. I'm the one with the accent here.
So am I, actually. Despite having been here for 35 years, I sound terribly English still. But anyway, there we go.
Which, by the way, side note, Ted Lasso is an incredible show for missiology and missions. So just watch it.
I've never watched it, actually.
Yeah, that's right. So, yes, I'm Mark, married to Andrea. We, as Rupert said, are not from here. I'm from Florida. Andrea grew up in Chicago. I've been in ministry all my life. I did youth ministry for 10 years, loved it. And then we lived in Chicago. I was a spiritual formation pastor there for several years. And then we were asked to go to Tallahassee, Florida, where we have quite a bit of family there. That's where I was a youth minister for 10 years. And so we returned there. We were asked to go back and start a church. And so we started a church there called Crossbridge. And it was an amazing experience, probably the hardest thing I've ever done and the most rewarding thing I've ever done at the same time. We thought we'd be there forever because we had left Chicago and all the snow, and I ceremoniously hung my snow shovel up in the garage to never have to shovel snow again. Moving back to Florida, which I loved, in the sunshine. And all of our family was there, so like I said, we thought we'd be there forever. But God had other plans and began moving in us after about 7 years to make our way to Scotland. And so we moved here in 2011. And we were here for about 5 years. And then we worked with an organization called Forge. And that was my primary reason for coming over. And then we went back for a few years for our furlough home visit. We ended up staying longer because my daughter had some health things, I had some health things. And then now those are all behind us. And then the beauty of COVID was an opportunity, was a wilderness opportunity in a sense for us, but it was also an opportunity for God to speak. And he called us and let us know it was time to come back, which when we left, we knew we were coming back. And it's something that both us and our organization agreed with. So another aspect of what I do besides the Chief People Officer is my wife and I, Andrea and I together, are the regional directors for the UK and Ireland. So we oversee all of our people that are here serving and working. So that's a little bit about me.
That's brilliant, Mark. Thank you just for giving us that tiny little window into who you are. But just tell us also a little bit about New International. Okay. Sometimes my experience of people who come overseas feel this sort of sense of call to Scotland is it can have a little bit of a heroic approach to it. And, we've planted X number of churches in wherever it was, and then they come here and think it's the same, and it isn't. And one of the things that I've really loved about you and New International is the sense of congruence around values. It just feels like it fits. So tell us a bit about New International and some of that kind of ethos, that culture that you're growing out of.
Yeah, that's good. New International, just real quick, we're a mission agency that sends people, mainly people from the U.S., but we do work with other countries as well to send people around the world. We have 220 some odd people that are serving around the world with missions. Our kind of the key of who we are, it really comes out of the fact that our organization was founded by missionaries and for missionaries. It was the idea of, okay, we've experienced life on the field. What would be an organization that we would want that would really be helpful to us? Because there are kind of two ways that you can go about missions there as an organization. You can, one, have a calling as an organization and say, we're called to Europe, or we're called to Asia, a particular region. Or you can say, we're called to church planting, we're called to discipleship, we're called to youth work, whatever that might be. And then if you fit our mission, if God's calling lines up with our calling and our mission, then come join us and we can support you in that. And what they determined, which is one of the things that I love about our organization, but I also want to say it's not that one way is right or wrong, they're just different approaches. And the approach that they took was, God is at work all over the world, obviously. He's at work in all of us. And so what is it that God is calling the individual, that family to come and join his mission that he's already doing? And then as an organization, our primary goal, our primary purpose will be to exist just to help that missionary thrive, to kind of be a trellis, type idea that we can help them provide the support that they need to do what it is that they're called to do, not what we're called to do. And so that's been a really beautiful thing for us as a family, and hopefully that's been Jeremy and Erin's experience as well. But then culturally, one, we're there to help the missionary thrive, but then we're also asking, so like talking to you and having conversations with you, saying, what's God calling you to do? What's God calling CCE to do? And then how is it that we might partner together? How can we come alongside? And so our heart, especially in Europe, is that we're not looking for people that have the hero mentality that says, hey, I've got a vision. I've never been to Scotland before, or I've never been to England before, but God's calling me to do this thing, start this thing. And so we're like, well, that's when we say, well, maybe there's another organization. What we're looking for is the people that just say, I feel like God's doing something in my life. And it could be that they have a calling to church planting or to youth ministry or whatever that might be, or it might be to a region. And then we can come alongside and then partner with leaders like yourselves who are already working. God's already doing incredible things here, to come alongside and help accomplish the vision, the mission of what God's already doing here. And so it's a mentality of hopefully humility, of recognizing that we don't have the answers, that we're the ones that have things to learn, and that we're just searching for where God's at work and how we might come alongside and partner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I guess that approach just really resonates for us. That sort of really connects with our approach. So you actually sent me an email. I think it ended up in my junk folder for quite a while. So many months later,
Seems
I was
appropriate.
like, hi, Mark, I've just found your email. I'm so sorry. Can we have a coffee? And we've kind of begun developing a bit of a friendship and we'll learning together, which I've really loved. We'll maybe just touch on that in a few minutes. And then start talking about, well, would CCE be a place where some new international folks could land? We'll come to Jeremy and Erin in a moment, but just in that landing, what's from your perspective as the kind of UK regional director, what have you been looking for in churches for somebody to come and land and then begin to discern what it is that God's inviting them into?
Sure. Well, we're looking for, as I mentioned, what is God already doing and how can we partner? And then with the churches or organizations, whatever it might be, we're also looking then for, okay, where would be a place where a couple like Jeremy and Erin and their family can come and land and have community, have the ability to have people that they can share with, that they can pour into, but that can also pour into them, that will give them space to, but then also help in interpreting culture and understanding culture. Yes. And all those kind of things. And we'll give them time to do that as well. Because one of the things that we really encourage is a slow pace.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed, but Americans can get a little eager.
it's not just Americans, actually.
Okay.
The whole culture is just so fast and driven, isn't it? And I think that slowness is something I've really appreciated and connected with you about.
So we really look for organizations who are willing to say, yes, we want to kind of go organically, go slowly, and allow the couple or the person to come in to really learn culture, understand where they are, understand what God's doing, and then be able to organically then kind of find their place there, rather than coming in and saying, okay, here's the job, here's all things they're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. Which leads me nicely on to Jeremy and Erin, who I think we had a Zoom call. You were in the States. I think you were just pregnant.
I was pregnant.
I think you were pregnant, and now you've got little Ellie. So why don't you both just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourselves and your background. So either Jeremy, Erin, either of you go first.
I have the mic, so I guess I'll go first. But so yeah, I'm Jeremy Ferguson, white male.
It's a good Scottish name.
I don't know how many stones I am. I haven't figured out stones yet. Is that really a unit that's still used?
Yeah, stones and a bit both.
Anyway, sorry. I digress. So yeah, I don't know.
Where are you from?
Where am I from? Oh yeah, Virginia. So from Virginia in the U.S., that's where I grew up and have lived most of my life. I met Erin in university in Knoxville, Tennessee, at Johnson Bible College or University now, but and we got married, and it's pretty cool. And I did. We have a 2-year-old. She's chaos, pure chaos. You see her. So we're trying our best to keep up with her, and failing most of the time. I've done did youth ministry for maybe 7 years-ish or so at 2 different churches, and then got out of ministry for a little bit, and then ended up, there was a youth ministry, then I got out of ministry, and then I went back to youth ministry, and then I ended up transitioning from that to a university ministry at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and did that for about 4 years, and we'll talk about Scotland stuff in a little bit, I think, but that's kind of a basic.
That's
rundown.
brilliant. And just before you pass the baton over, one of your favourite things to do is football or soccer.
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 Football, not American football. American football is the worst. I don't recommend it. It's boring. It's all commercials. It's Americanism at its highest level of annoyance. So I play football. I'm a goalkeeper. I play in a church league. It's like for Central. Community doesn't have a team. Otherwise, I'd rep them, but you know.
Yeah, I don't have a team.
Anyways,
and you support Manchester United, so we do need to pray for Jeremy just at the moment. But
they're pretty poor right now. But and disc golf is my other hobby. So that's like golf, but with frisbees. It's a good time. If anybody's interested, let me know. We can go play. Yeah, it's
Brilliant.
For everyone.
So, Erin, why don't we it would be great just to hear a bit about who you are and some of your background and professional experience. So just tell us a bit about yourself.
So I'm Erin Ferguson. I'm married to Jeremy. I am originally from Indiana, and we met at university, and we dated all through university and got married right before my grad year. And so I went to school primarily for early childhood education, and then I got a master's in holistic education. So then I taught as a classroom primary teacher for 10 years, and then I transitioned and got another master's degree in literacy, instruction, leadership. So then I moved into a leadership position at my school that I left before we moved. And so I think here it's called like support for learning, but we call them reading specialists in the States. So my job was to support the grade levels that would be like P1 to P5 was what I supported, and so I would work with students and provide intervention. I would collect data and track their growth and meet with parents and things like that, so very specific on literacy and writing and reading. So that was my passion. I think because I grew up in a public school, I always have had a big heart for serving families and public education. And so the school that I was at was a very high needs school, very like low income families, very struggling behaviors and things like that. And that's kind of where I found my personal ministry. I always had been involved and kind of supported Jeremy's ministry. I would always be a leader when he was a student minister or when he did college university. I would go on retreats and definitely try to support and be involved in that regard. But I also found that a big part of my personal ministry was loving on the families and the staff members that I worked with in school, and that God provided a lot of really interesting and amazing opportunities for me to just be open about who I was and my faith and talk about things that I was doing. Like people would ask, what are you doing? And I'd say, I'm going to go on this retreat. And it would just, God provide opportunities for me to share my beliefs and, what we do. And that, allowed me to just help make connections with people about who God is and about his love. So yeah, that's a bit of me.
That's brilliant. And it's been so good having you part of CCE, I guess now about 8 months or something.
Yeah.
So you'll have seen these two around, and little Ellie, who's the sweetest little thing.
Yeah, she's fun.
But just tell us a little bit about why you've left friends, family, good jobs, country to come to Scotland. So, Erin, why don't you start, and then maybe we'll hear from Jeremy.
Yeah, okay. So, long story short, when Jeremy and I were at university, he had a professor that had actually gone on sabbatical and came here and actually preached for a summer and had come and was sharing with his class that Jeremy was in. And Jeremy has Scottish ancestry with Ferguson, and his dad's very passionate about their family background and tracing their roots and stuff. So Jeremy's always had an interest and a passion for Scotland, which I've honestly picked up since being married and dating him. I've come to love. We've holidayed here a few times, so that just really solidified how much we loved the country and the people and the culture here. So from, I think, that moment, God kind of planted a seed in Jeremy and this idea of like, well, maybe that's where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I should do ministry there. And obviously we were still in university and had like no real adult life experience yet. So I hadn't had a chance to really know what it was to even be in ministry or to do ministry. So I think God had kind of planted that seed that took a while for it to come about. But through that, we ended up eventually pursuing and kind of praying for many years, because that was a while ago that we were in university. And eventually, I think from holidays, from prayer, from meeting the right missionary organization with Mark and Andrea, like we were able to really see God moving in our lives. Even Jeremy transitioning from working in a church and doing youth ministry to then doing college ministry, I think he was already preparing the way for us to make our way to Scotland. So that is a short version of it, but I'll let Jeremy add some more detail to it.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many details to go into all of it. But yeah, I mean, I think the simplest answer to the question of why are we here is it does come down to because God called us to come here. And I guess just to add a little bit to that whole experience, basically what happened, that professor talked about doing ministry in Scotland. It was interesting. And then later that day, I was driving to work, and I just was thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, just in my head, the question popped into my mind, like, what if I did ministry in Scotland? And like in that moment, instantly, like the Holy Spirit just hit me, and I was overwhelmed by the Spirit and emotion that I've never really felt like in such a powerful way before, and that just really stuck with me, and that, like, to give some timeline perspective, I mean, that was probably almost 16 years ago that happened. And again, we weren't ready, I don't think, to go overseas straight out of college. So we ended up going into and just continuing down paths in the US. But it was always on the back of our mind and on our hearts, like thinking like about Scotland. And so we're developing experiences in ministry, we're developing connections with people, and we felt like we saw God maybe preparing us for a move, but we were happy. Like, we were happy with her. She was happy with her teaching. I was happy in the college ministry that I was in. But I felt like God had moved through me, and so I owe it to him to like explore the possibilities. I explored one possibility and the door was shut, but then through that I was given Mark's contact information because he's known in these parts, and I wasn't given any like context of who he was. It was just like he's connected to a lot of ministries in Scotland, and maybe there's opportunity through that. And I waited a few months because that's after we found out Erin was pregnant, and then I ended up emailing him, and we started talking. And long story short, God opened the door for us to come and just confirmed all, the thoughts and feelings and the journey and the preparation, and here we are, and it's a miracle that we're here. And I think, and it's still surreal sometimes. It's hard, like it is hard leaving our family and friends and what we knew, and ministry and job and Chick-fil-A. Erin misses Morin's Chick-fil-A every day. I don't know if probably most of you don't know what Chick-fil-A is, but it's just a really good chicken sandwich place, and they're starting to pop. There's one in Belfast. I think Mark went there and gave it good reviews. So if you're ever in Belfast, is it Belfast or?
Belfast. Well,
yeah.
Lisburn, but yeah.
Okay, near there. All right. So if you're ever there, check it out. Maybe they'll get here one day. We did go to Popeyes on Saturday. It was really good. So.
Excellent.
Anyway.
Bringing it back. As you start reminiscing about all that you've left behind, it's been great having you here, and for CCE to be a place that you kind of land and then discern where it is, and whether that's for a short time or a longer time. It's been great having you here, and just an invitation, I guess, to all of us just to open our hearts to Jeremy and Erin as you've left so much from back at home to come here out of that sort of sense of call and obedience to God. Jeremy, you've got involved with the student work here, so just tell us a bit about your heart there and what you've been doing and why that feels like that's a really good fit for you.
Yeah, and I think it's worth like kind of mentioning the context of and we've talked about it a little bit about New International coming alongside missionaries to just kind of help them figure out God's calling, and I think that was one of the difficulties of me coming here was I had a calling to go to Scotland, and that was it. He wasn't calling me to a specific ministry or a specific area. It was just like, go to Scotland. And even as much as I prayed and thought about it, nothing like came to my heart and mind about this, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so if I came to like an American church with that, like, without a clear vision of exactly what I was going to do, I would not ever be hired, So it was nervous about going into like having a conversation with Mark with that kind of approach, and to my surprise, like he welcomed that and even like was saying that like that's the more ideal way to approach it. Like, come here and just figure out we'll figure it out. Like, God will move through you while you're here, while you're building connections with people, and so. So we talked about like different things anyway. So we ended up settling on like, we're going to come to Edinburgh. We're going to start getting connected with CCE and just see what God does in that time. And so while we were here, like kind of early on, there was a slide about like putting together a team for the student ministry to lead that. And so that they were looking for leaders, and I was like, well, I could feel like this is too not coincidental, like that there's an opportunity for me to do something that I have experience in, and I love student ministry. It's been just really, I think, a good fit for me. It's very relational. Like youth ministry, especially in the U.S., is very like program heavy, very like. It's energy, and I'm not energy, obviously. So my passion is in ministry in whatever regards, whatever the age group or whatever. I want to build relationships. I want to come alongside people. I want to help them where they're at and just love on people. And so student ministry is a good conduit for that. And so I've stepped in and have been helping out, and it's been really good. And I'm excited to continue for a period of time just helping with the student ministry here. And I think student ministry is university students are facing so much, kind of it's just such a pivotal time. Every time period of a person's life has their reasons for being very pivotal moments. But I'm passionate about that kind of university period, because it's really when people are becoming who they're going to be for the rest of their lives, and they're also facing they're most of the time stepping away from their pillars of support, as I call it, that they've had, whether it's their family or their friends or their youth group. And when you step away from that, you're kind of left with more, vulnerable to all the external influences, especially in universities. There's a lot of peer pressure and influences and things that are taking you in different directions and stuff. And so I felt it's a vital time for us to, hopefully we can come alongside students and help provide a new pillar of support for them while they're away from what they've had before, and help them stay connected with Jesus, or find Jesus for the first time too, of course. But I think statistically, if students that stay in relationship with Jesus through college will have a relationship for the rest of their lives, and students that fall away during university, which a lot do fall away during university, statistically don't come back or whatever. So that's where my heart is, and just trying to be a help, to be able to come alongside students to help them in the pivotal time.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent. And it's been such a gift that you've come, and I think the heart and the approach that you've got just feels so consistent with who we are. Sort of not shiny programs, but actually just getting alongside people, helping them discover something of faith for themselves that would be deepened, and discovering who they are, and that's your approach, which has just really fitted well. And Bella is leading that team at the moment. The plan was for her to kind of transition from Roman and Bella being the student workers to a student team. Bella would lead the team, and she will finish up at the end of June. And then Jeremy, brilliantly, you're going to step into that leadership role, form a team. So if you want to be a team of people around Jeremy, just resourcing young adults and student work, then please come and have a conversation with Jeremy. We would particularly value some women getting alongside Jeremy just to help there. That would be excellent. I'm just going to move us on now. It's really great to hear your story. Just for the final kind of 2 or 3 minutes, Mark. We don't have a huge amount of time, but just to finish off and lead us into some sung worship. One of the things I've really appreciated about our kind of growing friendship is your sense of curiosity of faith.
That's a good way to put it.
I guess we've really connected over that. I love the quote that Nikki just kind of read out around, if what you believe when you end your life is the same as what you believe when you begin, then there's probably something wrong. You're probably not paying attention. And I just love that. And I've loved kind of getting glimpses of your journey of faith and curiosity and exploration. So over the last, probably a number of years actually, but we particularly over the last 6 months, we've been really thinking about what difference does it make if you start with Jesus, and then you kind of think about the gospel, or you think about reading the Bible, or you think about what it means to be a Christian, or what it means to be church. If you start with Jesus, that has some quite profound potential implications, and we've been having a few conversations around that. So Mark, just for a few minutes, just what difference, how has that changed your faith and approach with this kind of starting with Jesus focus?
It changed everything.
Yeah.
Is that short enough?
Well,
No, I'm joking.
in what way? Just give us a little snapshot.
No, it's funny, I was actually thinking about this, and I believe God gave me an image, and man, this image has been replaying in my head over and over and over again. Even when we were sitting here and singing, when the question popped up, it replayed through my head again. A couple years ago, I went to Cairo, and when I go to a city, I love to just wander. I kind of get lost in my thoughts, and I'm really bad with directions. And I found myself, at the beginning was really amazing. I was kind of going through these little alleys and corridors, and I noticed that they kept getting more narrow and darker and darker. And
Yes.
pretty soon I was like, I have no idea where I am and how I'm going to get out of here. And it was, I don't know if scary is the right word, but it was uncomfortable. And then I began to hear some noise, and I began to kind of follow, and things began to open up a little bit and open up a bit. And then I just turned a corner, and then boom, I was in the middle of a square that I recognized, and everything felt like home. And it was bright, and there's lots of life and energy in the marketplace there. And that's the image that God's given me for kind of how this whole thing has taken place. Because I went through a very time of what someone called deconstruction, I guess. I think there are better words for it, reframing, auditing. But I went through a time where I really was going through questioning everything, really. And I didn't know where it was going to end up. Yes. And I stumbled across, I read something, and it talked about the Christocentric approach and this idea of Jesus being the lens. And I just grabbed onto that, and it was a lifeline. Yes. And it changed everything. It changed my perspective. It changed how I approach scripture. It changed how I live my life. It changed my politics. I mean, it changed everything. Yeah. And it was life-giving and freedom, and it was a new way and an ancient way, and it all kind of felt, it just, everything within me said, yes, this is the way. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I mean, that's brilliant. And what I love that sense of constriction. Mm-hmm. The word that I used with my spiritual director recently was suffocating.
Yeah.
And actually, there's something so wide and expansive about starting with Jesus and this, what opens up when you do that. Mm-hmm. It feels like, I can breathe again. And then this pressure to kind of get back in the box, and it feels suffocating. And actually, one of the scriptures I've been playing around with, which is a really interesting kind of play on that a little bit, is the wide road and the narrow road. Mm-hmm. And actually, the invitation to walk down the narrow road, which looks uninviting and constricting, but actually leads to breadth and life. And the way I interpret that verse would be around, this is about putting into practice the teachings of Jesus, and particularly the Sermon on the Mount. And if we can follow this Jesus way, although it's narrow road, it's actually wide and expansive. Mm-hmm. So that was just one of the things I was bouncing off you. And just as we come, Paul, I wonder if you could come up, and we'll lead into some worship in a moment. But Mark, just as we finish, is there a scripture for you, or a couple of scriptures that just really resonate with this Jesus-centered, Christocentric approach of gospel, scriptures, God, faith, life?
I mean, there are quite a few. One that, is obviously I've known all my life, but kind of changing this paradigm has really given new life to it, is John 1:1, where it talks about, the Word was with God, from the beginning, and just like reiterating that. And then it gets to the end of that section, and it says He, and I love the concept of, I grew up my whole life thinking, the Word of God is the Bible, which I don't mean to lessen that in any way, but the reality is the Word of God is Jesus.
Yes.
And He's the ultimate authority, the ultimate revelation of who God is.
Yes.
And so that, and then as far as like how I read the Bible and how I understand things, or just life in general, I feel like God's given me this verse, John 10:10, which is another really common one that most people know, which is, that the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come to give life more abundantly. And just as I interpret, as I understand, as I try to discern, it's a really simple thing that basically wherever I see anything negative like that, it's Satan, it's evil. Wherever I see good, that's Jesus, that's God, that's who God is. And really what this whole thing has done for me is it has removed the buts.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, I used to always say God is love, but he's also, and I just now have a period. It's just God is love.
Yeah. Full stop.
Yes.
End of.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Amen.
That's a good place to transition into some worship. Can we just give these guys a big round of applause? Thank you so much. Why don't we just stand as Paul just leads us into worship? And that, I love that, removes the buts. God is love, no buts. And if you're able to stand, please do. If you want to sit or just engage with this worship however you want. Let's just pray. Spirit of God, just lead us into these wide, spacious places of your love, of the incredible good news that God is here and present. And all we need to do is just open ourselves up to this love of God that holds us, nourishes us, and sustains us. And so, Spirit of God, move amongst us in this place, in this time, to orientate ourselves, each one of us, around Jesus. Show us your glory, Lord.